We're going to be looking at 5.10, doing our quadratic formula. Quadratic formula is a fantastic thing for solving all of these x squareds quadratics that we've been using. Discriminant, we'll talk about that in the next section. But our formula right here, our x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. This is what we do when we cannot factor. Doesn't work. When we don't really want to do our square root method because we can't. Too complicated for it. If we don't want to complete the square because we don't like it or whatever. This is our no fail, always can work kind of situation, but it's also a really long and drawn out process from time to time. So just checking, plugging things in, just seeing how it works. Here's a little bit of a piece. We're going to plug in some stuff, get 12 squared minus 4 times 2 times 35. This is just kind of part of our equation. This is actually the discriminant that we're going to talk about a little bit more later. But just checking it out and seeing how things are going to work as we're going through. When we get this part where we've got three numbers multiplied, it doesn't matter what order you multiply them in. I'm probably going to go like, 2 times 4 makes 8. 8 times the 35 is going to give me 280, I believe. So when we subtract that, that's going to give me a negative 136. So this isn't really doing anything yet. It's just kind of checking all of our process. See if you can plug in some numbers and do things right. So give this one a try. Hit pause. Try number 2. Example number 3, we're actually using our square root portion. And I think you can try that one out too. Plug your numbers in here. Take your square root and see if you can simplify that square root. I think you'll be able to. Example 4, definitely going to take a look at here. Now we've got our negative b in front, we've got our plus minus here, so this is our whole formula except for the bottom part of the fraction. When we plug things in, especially when we have this negative b here for the number we're plugging in, we want to make sure I get the negative sign from my formula plus the negative sign from the number itself. Very important, changes your life as far as these things go and how your answers are going to look. So my negative 6 getting plugged in here, again I'm using parentheses to make sure that I'm taking care of that negative sign properly. My a is a 1 and my c is an 18. So we're usually going to be excited when we see the a is a 1. That means life's a little bit easier on us. So simplifying here, 2 negatives here, can't be too negative, got to be positive. So I got 6 plus or minus. Now when I'm simplifying in here, a lot of times I like to just think about, well, what's this part? 6 times 6 is 36. Doesn't matter whether it's negative or positive, because negative 6 times negative 6 is also positive 36. 4 times 18, what's that big number? 72, I think. So 36 minus 72 is going to leave my inside the square root number to be a negative 36. Well, that worked out nice. I know what the square root of negative 36 is. Well, the square root of 36 is 6, and that negative sign means I. And you thought I was going away. I don't go away. This guy looks really kind of angry. It's like, why am I dealing with this? Who brought I into this? Alright. Example number 5. Now we've got a, kind of like we've already simplified our square root portion, and we're looking at our fraction and deciding how we're going to simplify this thing. So I've got 4 plus or minus square root of 8. What's going to happen with that? Well, what do? 4 and a 2, 2 and a 2, so a 2 gets out and a 2 stays in. So I get a 2 here and a 2 here, all over the 8 on the bottom. Bam! So my square root of 8 gets simplified into 2 square root of 2. Wonder why we were doing that earlier, in the first unit, so that we could do that right here. Now, this is where kids get really sad. Apparently Mrs. Brockett wanted to see her daughter. Alright, we do not want to just start kind of just canceling things, bam, 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 start dividing everything like that. No. Your square root and your number on the bottom are never, ever, ever, ever going to cancel together. Cannot do that. We learned that last time. Do not be the kid that thinks you can do that. We've got to have numbers out here on the outside. My 4 and my 2 can. 4, 2, and 8. What do all three of these have in common? Well, a 2. Now I know the urge is to think, hey, 4 and 8, cut those both. No. we've got to make sure that my 4, my 8, and my 2 all have the same number in common. That's 2, so I'm going to cut them all in half. 2 plus or minus 1 square root of 2 all over half of 8 is 4. And that's what our answer is going to look like. You don't really need the 1 there, but it makes me feel better, so I like writing it. Example number 6, give that a try. See if you can simplify that. Make sure you're taking care of that double negative. Make it positive. Make sure you're taking care of what that 72 is going to break down into, and then make sure we're taking care of that 6 and simplifying that fraction. Example 7, what's different? Square root of a negative number. Who brought I back? Everybody does. So we got a whole lot of 12s here. We're going to deal with it. It'll be okay. Square root of 12. What does that make? 4 and a 3, and the 4 is a 2 and a 2. So here, 2 is going to get out. 3 has no friends, so we've got 12 plus or minus the 2 that got out plus, this is an I, square root of 3 all over my 12 from the bottom. So now here I can start simplifying some things. What do all these numbers have in common? Just the 2. So I really got 6 plus or minus I square root of 3 all over, cut that in half, is 6. And if we want to do this in proper form for our complex number, since I is involved, we can look at 6 over 6 is just a 1, and then square root of 3 over 6 with my I on the back. So this and this are both pretty good answers. But standard form for our complex numbers, since I is involved, would look like that. Alright, so now actually using our quadratic formula, how to do these things. First and most important step, got to have things equal to 0. We can't just start plugging numbers in if we don't have stuff equal to 0. So if we see things over here, we've got to use our algebra solving skills and switch them over to the other side. So how do I get rid of negative 1? I add 1 over to the other side. Bam, right here. X squared minus 8x plus 1. So now I'm ready to go. I've got everything on one side. I've got it in order with my x squared, my x, and my number. Always want to keep those in that order. Why? Well, because that's our standard form. That's our ax squared plus our bx plus c. And the reason why we need it that way is because that's what tells us what our a, our b, and our c are. A is right here. It's the imaginary 1. B is my negative 8, and C is my 1. So the x's, they don't come down here. We just have our numbers. And those are what we're going to plug into our formula. So we plug all those things in. We got my negative 8 dropping in here. I've got my A, B, and C's going on over here. I got my A down here on the bottom getting doubled. Oh, goodness. I bet you're scared right now. You're like, man, that is the craziest looking big, huge thing I've ever had to try and deal with in math. The trick is that it's really not all that complicated. It just looks really scary. My front, negative, negative, becomes positive. So I just got an 8. Well, what's 8 squared? 64. What's 4 times 1 times 1? 4. 64 minus 4 right here. What does that leave me with? 60. 2 times 1 on the bottom? There. So now once we get to here, this is right back where we were just doing. This is not so bad. How do I break down my 60? Well, that's 15 times 4, which is 2 times 2. So that 2 comes out here, 15 staying in. Now I take a look at cutting all these in half because 8, 2, and 2 have a 2 in common. And we get this final answer. 4 plus or minus the square root of 15. That is the same thing as what we got written here. It's just written split up with the plus and the minus version. A lot of times on your multiple choice portion of your test, it's going to look like this. If it was open-ended, sure, we're pretty happy with that. I love the plus minus. It just feels neat. So I like using it anyway, and my answers would look like that. So here, example 8. Let's take a look. I've got the 1 here. That's my A. My B is that negative 15, and my C is that 56. So plugging some stuff in. Negative B plus or minus square root of B squared minus 4AC all over 2A. Negative B, which is negative 15, plus or minus square root Negative 15 squared minus 4 times A, 1, and C, 56, all over 2 times A, 1. There we go. So, I know we're worried. We're like, man, look at all these things. But we just take it little part by little part. Negative negative here becomes positive 15, plus or minus. 15 squared, 15 times 15 is something like 225. 4 times 1 times 56 is something like 224. Hey, look at that. What's 225 minus 224? 1. And 2 times 1 makes 2. It's like magic. All that crap just disappears and I've got square root of 1 over here. Do we know what the square root of 1 is? Heck yes we do. 15 plus or minus 1 all over 2. So now it's kind of like the situation where we need to do both of our little problems. I'm going to go with 15 plus 1. 15 plus 1 makes 16 over 2, which is 8. Then I'm going to go with 15 minus 1. 15 minus 1 is 14 over 2 makes 7. So x equals 7 or 8 as our two answer choices. Man, if we were going to factor this, what would we get? X minus 7, x minus 8. So our answers would be 7 and 8. Man, it's like magic. 7 times 8, 56. 7 and 8, 15. It all comes back. So give this one a try. You want to make sure, since it's not equal to 0, we need to add that 9 over there. And we want to make sure that we write things in the proper order of minus 6x plus 9 equals 0 before we start plugging in our 1, our negative 6, and our 9 here for our A, B, and our C. Alright, example 10. We've got this negative 14 that I need to add over here. But I want to make sure x squared plus 14x plus 38 now equals 0. We want to make sure that that b is our 14. Cannot get these two mixed up. X squared, x number, or constant. So, plugging things into my formula, I'm going to get negative b, which is 14, plus or minus the square root of 14 squared minus 4 times a times c, all over 2 times 1. Nothing to do with that negative 14 out front. So let's take a look at what's going on here. 14 squared, what's that? 196 minus 4 times 38 is something like 152, I promise. I checked it out earlier. So that's going to give me 196 minus 152 is a 44 all over 2. So what things break down on a 44? Well, I bet you're thinking, hey, a 4 and an 11, which is a 2 and a 2. So we got a 2 getting out, 11 staying on the inside. Negative 14 plus or minus 2 square root of 11 over 2. Now when we have things left in that square root, you should actually be excited because that means there's less things to do. So I get negative 14, 2 and 2. I'll have a 2 in common, so I'm going to cut it all in half. Negative 7 plus or minus just square root of 11. 2 over 2 goes away, and 14 over 2 is 7. Not so bad, not so bad. Alright, give this one a try. It's already set up nice and easy for you. We got our 1, our 10, and our 29. See what you can do. Hit pause and give it a try. Last one here. Big thing here is we need to add that 1. Make sure that we get our 6x squared plus 6x plus 1 equals 0 and 1. So I'm going to work this one out. I urge you to try it, but I'm going to hit it real quick. And that's your final answer. Go ahead and bounce over to video 2.